Hi, I'm Tony.
I'm Patrick.
Welcome to Cave to the Cross Apologetics. We are working our way through a book by Greg Koukl, and it's called Tactics, a game plan for discussing your Christian convictions. And we've made our way through the book, and we're actually on the last chapter of the book that we've come to. Right? This one is called More Sweat, Less Blood. And so we want to see what's going on with this particular. I mean, that's kind of a.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'll sweat if it means less blood, right? Yeah. He says at the beginning of his book, Tactics, he made a promise. He said that he would guide us step by step through a game plan that would help us to maneuver comfortably and graciously in conversations about our Christian convictions. Right? And so he suggested an approach that he called the ambassador model. And he says that this particular model trades on friendly curiosity rather than confrontation. Right? So, and then he introduced us to a handful of effective tactics to help us to navigate conversations. Right. And so now he wants to talk to us about, okay, now that we have all of this stuff under our belt, we understand how these things work. What are our next steps?
We've read the book. Now we can close it up and never think about it again, right? That's what we've done. We've blown off the dust. That was a good read. Time to close the book.
That's right.
Nothing else to do.
No.
Oh, okay.
Next steps, right?
So he says that he learned from a former Marine who picked it up this book during the rigors of officer candidate school. This adage: the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. That's kind of been a mantra for many generations.
Yeah, the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. Right. Wow, I like that.
So that's why, if you've been a long distance runner like I have back in the day, in order to run 3.1 miles, you ran 10 miles.
Wow.
Because if you can run 10 miles.
A lot of sweat, right?
10 miles. I did 10 miles. 3.1, I can easily do.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, 5K. That's easy. So he says that he wants to end this book with some suggestions that will help you sweat more, bleed less, and thus stay always faithful to the task ahead of you.
Wow. Well, I'll take those.
Okay.
I'll take those. So he starts off by giving us what he calls 8 quick tips, right? And so it just kind of ticks them off, and so that's what we'll do here. Right. So the first one is to be ready. He tells us that good ambassadors are vigilant, always watchful for what might turn out to be a divine appointment. So we need to be ready, right? That's why we've read the book. That's why we've thought through these particular issues. And so we need to be ready for the opportunities that come to us. Secondly, he says we should keep it simple. In other words, why complicate things with controversial issues unrelated to salvation? Remember, we want to put a stone in the person's shoe and not a pile of rocks.
Right? Yeah. Here's 16 books to read on this subject. Go.
Yeah. Thirdly, he says, avoid religious language and spiritual pretense. Now, we've kind of covered this in the last chapter, right? We need to make sure that we communicate precisely, that people don't misunderstand. And oftentimes, Christian jargon and religious language people are not familiar with, and so their eyes glaze over, and you lose them, right? Yeah. So we need to be real precise in our language, and oftentimes if we avoid Christian jargon, we can help them to keep up with us as we're explaining what we're talking about.
Right. Knowing the Greek, knowing the Latin, those are nice phrases to put out, but if you're not going to explain them, then it's just hubris on your part.
Yeah.
So the fourth focus that he has here is that we should focus on the truth of Christianity, not merely its personal benefits. Right. So I became a good person because I was a Christian. Well, okay, other people become good people because of their religion. So having this idea now, there are definitely benefits to presenting that. I'm not saying never do that. Right. In fact,
a good testimony can go a long way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You knew me before I was a Christian. You knew how terrible I was or how apathetic I was. What you've asked me, what has changed about my life? Let me tell you about it. Right. And so that's when you get into the truth of Christianity, not just I read a book and it helped change me. Tony Robbins can help do that too. If anyone remembers Tony Robbins. Yeah. So truth of Christianity is what we want to present, not personal feelings, not just this blind faith type deal. The fourth one is.
I think this is the fifth.
the number that I'm on now.
Yes,
is,
the next one.
Yes, the next one is to give reasons, right? Even in a relativistic age, people still care about reasons. Show me your proof.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me why this is true.
Yeah, so they want reasons.
Yeah. Now, they might not always agree with them, but those reasons are important to know. And I think a big one is stay calm. Don't get mad. Don't show frustration. Don't look annoyed. Keep your cool.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know how to do this because it is sometimes hard. And, there are benefits to having this type of conversation online. You can get up, you can walk away, you can hit the delete key, you can type in what you want and say, okay, that was good, but that's definitely not the Christian message right there.
Right,
and so we can't always
through it again.
We can't always do that in person, but understand the ambassador model. When an ambassador is sent from America to China, what China does is, sometimes terrible and awful, and you want to condemn it. But does that emotional appeal have any implication to what you're charged to do in your capacity, in your role?
And you can condemn it, but the idea here is to just stay calm, right, and clear, and don't get mad. You don't have to show frustration and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, there's righteous anger, and then there's unrighteous anger.
His next of his 8 quick steps, he says, is that if they want to go, let them leave, right? Don't force the conversation. Instead, let the exchange end naturally. Remember, you don't need to close the sale in every encounter.
Right.
So if they're getting bored with it, eye contact, they're all over the place. Let them go.
Yeah, right? I've got to get to work, but hold on.
One more thing.
I'm on point 1 of 16.
Got to get my points across.
Yeah.
No, if they want to go, let them go.
Right. Yep.
And then finally, he says, we don't have to leave them empty-handed, though. Right? If they want to go, let them go, but we don't have to leave them empty-handed. If possible, we can give the person, a tangible way to follow up on what we challenged them about. Right? Maybe a track or something like that. A small New Testament of the Gospel of John, or something like that.
Can I get your email so that I can send you a link for something I learned about this? Or here's a really good book that I want. If I let you borrow the book or got you the book, would you read it? And so that's always a nice gesture as well. Right. And then it's also provides an ability to follow up afterwards and in different setting. And cooler heads prevail if something got amiss, and you can kind of go over it again and say, hey, I want to apologize for my behavior. I don't think I presented myself well, or what have you, or I told you this, but I was incorrect, so I want to make sure that I gave you the accurate one. I don't want to misconstrue what is true. Right. And so, kind of these 8 ideas, these quick tips that he has, remove obstacles that get in your way as an ambassador, right? Because that's what we are. That's our goal. Is we're made in the image of God. We go out into the world and we proclaim His message. We're His ambassadors. They will make it easier for others to focus on your message without being distracted by your methods. So you're not saying, hold on, I remember this. I'm on point 3. I need to actually go back to point 2. Let me. This helps kind of your flow of conversation, and there's no one right way to respond to people, because everyone's going to have different subjective values on what they view as good evidence or what they want to talk about. And so these tactics are meant to kind of give you an underlying basis for how to talk to people.
Yeah, he says here, the irony is that when our method is skillful, it fades into the background, right? Right. So, but when the method is clumsy or offensive, then it becomes the focus instead of the truth of what we want to communicate. Right. Right.
Yeah. So, if you think about, every debate I've seen Bart Ehrman do, I know his jokes, I know his presentation. He just does the same thing because he's getting paid to do it. I don't think he's really engaged with the other side, because I don't think he really views them as value. And so if you have that type of strict, here's how I present the gospel each time, here's the words I say, you almost kind of go into a robotic form of presenting it. You're not talking to the person, you're talking at the person. Yeah. So another key to making you a better ambassador is to the company that you keep. When people ask me how to get their church interested in loving God with their minds as Christians, I have a simple bit of advice. You can't start a fire with wet wood. You must begin with dry tinder. So, don't try and change your church and force them like that. We all need to read Greg Koukl's books, Tactics. This is the best thing ever. This is how we present the gospel. No, you find like-minded people and you say, hey, I have a desire to do this. Will you help me? And so you go to somebody who, who's in your church and say, hey, can we partner up? Can we go over what some things that we've heard are and kind of, go back and forth on using the Columbo method, and what are we prepared to listen to, and do we know what we know? Right. That's an important thing too.
So he says in nearly every church there are brothers and sisters who share your hunger, but have yet to share your discovery.
Right.
They're dissatisfied, yearning for something more substantial, but do not know where to turn. And he calls these people your dry tinder. And so he says, do not make it your goal to change your church, as you mentioned, first, but find people of kindred spirit, right? That's what we're looking for.
Right. So this dry tinder, we want to commit to meet together on a regular basis, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it might be. Maybe we do it on Discord or online. Maybe we do it in front of people. Maybe we don't. Maybe we record it. Maybe we record it only for us to look back on it and critique each other. Whatever fits your schedule. Meet together for a limited but definite period of time to study a particular topic. And especially, if you're talking about something that could have so many rabbit holes, having something just with like a written form of, hey, this is what we're going to be discussing, and have an agreement that that's what it's going to be, because that's going to help just focus you, and you're not going to talk about how the Yankees did. And, you set aside time for that, 5 minutes time to talk about how great the Yankees are, or whoever it might be.
Right.
How terrible Michigan State is. Your group could be the catalyst influencing others in your church, a vital resource that your Christian friends can turn to when they have questions. And so, we see this when new ideas come into play. We talked about like the Da Vinci Code and how many people read the Da Vinci Code before it became popular, before it became, this is true. This is the answer to Christianity. Let's all use this. And so then the church panics and they're looking for people who may have answers. You're like, I read that book and I've read the response to that book. Let me kind of give a presentation.
Can we get together or give a presentation or good.
Let me develop a little track to hand out.
So that's called dry tinder, right? Yeah. Just find the dry tinder and then you can put the whole thing on fire. Right. His next kind of approach here and way to get this off the to help you in terms of using these various principles is a way that he tells us kind of the method to use them, right? He calls this hostile witness. So this is kind of scary, actually, if you think about it. He says, part of the pursuit involves a certain kind of vulnerability. So we have to be vulnerable, he tells us. So he says if we want to cultivate a well-informed faith, we need to be aware of our own powerful instincts for ideological self-preservation. Right? In other words, we surround ourselves with people that think exactly the way we do so that we can preserve our ideology. Right? And that way, we're safe, we're comfortable, and we can breathe sigh of relief. Yep, they understand the way I do, they believe the way I do. This is the way the world must be because we all believe like this, right?
Anything outside of that is an antithesis to my ideas or ideology.
Right. Yeah. And he says, no. Instead of digging in behind fortifications to protect against attackers, notice, we should encourage critique by hostile witnesses.
Sure.
So we need to go outside of the walls, go outside of the fort, and present our ideas, and then encourage those who don't agree with us to tell us what they think about it. Right? Yeah,
because half the time the objections are so old that you can look in first, second, third century books and find answers to it, or the responses just aren't that good, or it's something you've never thought about and you want to go find the answer, and you come to be the person that knows the answer to that question. Yeah. So you write a book about it and make a bunch of money. That's great.
I don't think we have to be necessarily fearful in these types of situations. Okay. I mean, we can consider it as training or practice, right? And so we can go out and say, okay, today I'm going to practice sharing the gospel, right? Or I'm going to practice, so I'm going to find someone who I believe doesn't agree with me, and I'm going to practice trying to meet their objections and tell them why I believe what I believe. Mm-hmm. And, so with practice, so when you're practicing free throws, let's say, you don't make every basket, but you don't care because it's practice, right? And the same, so you can consider it this way, right? Go out and practice, but God may use your practice, right? But find hostile witnesses that will help you to improve your game. Right. Find someone who doesn't agree with you, and talk to them about your belief.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't only have to be about, does a God exist, or is Jesus the Son of God? It could be something like the topic of abortion. Go find that one person that that happens to have a different opinion than you, and say, hey, here's what I heard on the news last night, and it was discussed on this. What do you think about that? Right. And then that starts the conversation. You can kind of hone your skill on that particular topic, and you utilize your worldview, your Christianity, and what Jesus said, all those things. How do you know what you know? How did you come to that conclusion? All those are questions you can answer, and you do it in that kind of controlled manner, and that person is more likely to respond in not such a why are you asking me that? Are you accusing me?
Make it into a conversation, right? Where you're. And so he compares this hostile witness idea with peer review in terms of academia, right? I think it's really good. He says peer review is based on a sound notion. If our ideas are easily destroyed by those acquainted with the facts, they ought to be discarded. Right. But if our ideas are good, they will not be upended so easily. In the process, we'll learn what the other side knows. We may even be surprised at how weak the substance of their resistance really is, right? And so, let's go find a hostile witness, right?
Or maybe I don't know it well enough, and I can be okay with saying, I really haven't thought about that. Let me get back to you.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't hurt. If Christianity is true, it doesn't hurt the truth. And it tells you, man, I'm not prepared to answer this, so I'm just going to go back and put more sweat, less blood into it.
That's right.
I got stuck. I'm bleeding, but you know what? I can go back.
That's right. And put more sweat into
it. Being gun shy. I get this. I understand. A commitment to truth as opposed to a commitment to organization means an openness to refining one's own views. Sometimes you may not have the right answer right away. It means increasing the accuracy of one's understanding and being open to correction in thinking, right? If you're not doing that, then you've got it all. You know everything. You're the Dalai Lama who sits on the mountain. And you're just waiting for people to come to the mountain. A challenger might turn out to be a blessing in disguise.
Amen.
An ally instead of an enemy.
That's right.
And an evangelist who is convinced of his or her view then should be willing to engage the best argument against it.
Right.
And that's what we hear. We like reading people like Michael Kruger, or when we interviewed Scott Christian-ese, we made it a point to say, you present the best argument for the other side and you respond to that. Because who wants to have the weakest argument? I won, they're done.
Yeah.
Well, what about the people that know the subject and present this argument? I'm not writing to them. No. You want to deal with the best arguments possible. And so don't make up definitions of words of what people don't believe. That might help.
Right. And so deal with the best arguments, right? So one or two things will happen if we do this, he tells us. Either we might discover that some objections to our view are good ones, right? Then the rebuttal, he says the rebuttal would help us make adjustments and corrections and refine our thinking and our knowledge of the truth, right? Or it might turn out that we're on solid ground and what they have to say doesn't affect our arguments, right? They have weak arguments themselves. And so he says, developing answers to the toughest arguments against someone would strengthen both our witness and our confidence in our convictions.
Confidence, that sounds like faith to me.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that is faith.
Yeah. That's gun shy. Yeah. Don't be gun shy. Go on out and do it. Right?
And then finally, Courage Under Fire.
Ooh, yeah.
Good book. Good movie. Here's the main takeaway for you. Don't retreat simply because you face opposition. Too much is at stake. Be the kind of soldier who instills respect in others because of your courage under fire. Say things like, I don't know, or let me get back to you, or I haven't thought about it that way before. Right. Can I take a moment? Can I get back to you? That's perfectly fine. If you don't understand, if they don't allow you to have perfect knowledge, with total recall and remembering all the specific dates.
Well, we're getting all the movies in here. Yeah, Courage Under Fire, Total Recall.
Right. Go to Mars. Is that the type of conversation you want to have? Is that what they would want for themselves? And so, that's just how we approach any conversation, except for things on Twitter and these days. And so hopefully not everything is all politics. And so we can get out of this quagmire of letting people be wrong and letting people be able to not know everything right off the bat and be able to bring the best arguments, maybe not right at that time, but come back to you and say, let's put a pin in it. But don't lose heart if your audience seems to get the best of you sometimes. That happens to each of us sooner or later. I hope so. Yeah. The most important gauge of success will not be our numbers or even our impact, but our fidelity, our pledge of allegiance to Jesus Christ, our Savior.
Right. Our faithfulness to just trust God and walk in obedience, right? Our faithfulness to God. That is the gauge of success.
Right.
He ends the book with what he's called the Ambassador's Creed, right? And we won't, so I'll just tick off all of these here. We won't necessarily explain them, but it's kind of an interesting way to end the book, right? Yeah. He says, the ambassador is ready, patient, reasonable, tactical, clear, fair, honest, humble, attractive, dependent, right? Ambassador knows the effectiveness requires joining his best efforts with God's power. So we are dependent on God.
Right.
So he calls this the Ambassador's Creed. And that's how he ends the book.
Right. And so we did it. We made it to the end.
Wow.
You might not have agreed with all his points. Maybe you think the Columbo is a part 2, not a part 1. Maybe you kind of the finding flaws is kind of the biggest benefactor to you, but I think this was a good book just to get you thinking about how to talk to people and also to do some self-examination. I think all Christians should do, especially with how the world is and how everyone expects everyone to respond and how the response videos and the Twitter exchanges. It would just be nice to have more cordial, important conversations and not just bumper sticker from both sides. And so,
right. So the book is Tactics, a game plan for discussing your Christian convictions. We worked our way through the 10th anniversary edition, right, by Gregory Koukl. And the foreword, by the way, it was written by Lee Strobel.
Hey, what do you know?
Yeah. All right.
So thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for probably a follow-up to this book that I think you'll enjoy. And then from there, we'll start our next book, or we'll figure out something to do. And so we'll let you know, and we'll let you know before we actually crack open the next book or whatever it is. So thanks for joining us. Continue to share, like, subscribe if you want. If not, that's fine too. Brush off your books of the dust every once in a while, because you might need it sooner or later.
All right.
Thanks again.
Yep. See you next time.